Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Joe. This is the Joe Martino Show. And today we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, conflict. We're going to talk about 8 very specific benefits of conflict. How when we engage conflict in an appropriate way, we get one of the best payoffs that we could ever get in our relationship. We get emotional security. Let's kick it off. This is the Joe Martino Show.
You're listening to the Joe Martino Show, a podcast dealing with all things emotional, relational, and human nature. Joe is a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan, specializing in relationship therapy. He is also the author of the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. All advice offered in this episode is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the show.
Hey friends, welcome to today's episode. How's the day going for you? Actually, let me ask you an even bigger question. How's the year going for you? By the time this episode drops, we're going to be like middle of April, and it's just wild to me how fast this year is going. It's just flying by. And I know some people are struggling with it. How are you doing? How is your year going? Did you set goals? If you did, how's that going? Are you reaching them? Are you avoiding them? What's going on with your year? I want to talk to you today about something that I'm passionate about, that I love talking about, and that is relationships. But I want to specifically talk to you about the truth that conflict in a relationship is your best friend. And I want to give you some very specific benefits of conflict for a relationship. But before I do that, I have an exciting announcement to tell you. My book, The Emotionally Secure Couple, is now available on Audible. If you are so given to reading books on Audible, if you enjoy listening to books, it is available there. It is not me reading it. It's funny. It's been available not very long, and I don't have my voice. It's an AI voice, and some people have expressed that they're a little bit disappointed about that, and that's okay. I get that. But the quality of their ability to record, they being Amazon, and my ability are just worlds apart. And I don't know what we're going to do with the recordings that we've made so far of me recording the book. We might release that on Gumroad, and that is a different platform. I just want to make sure that I'm not violating anything if I do it there. All right, let's talk about conflict, which is right from the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. In fact, it's from chapter 8, Why Conflict is Your Best Friend. Here's the questions that we're trying to answer today. How do we engage conflict in a healthy manner, right? Because the question is not, will we have conflict in our relationships? The question is, can we engage it in a healthy way? How can we stay engaged in conflict long enough to resolve whatever the issue is? Now, I want you to notice the phrase, the issue. A lot of times what happens is people try to resolve multiple issues at once. And if you've listened to my episode on the 6 rules of communication, you know we have a rule guarding us against that. And then the third way is, how do we exit the conflict in a manner that reflects the fact that we've both resolved the issue and we can leave the issue there and we have built the relationship. We have to find healthy ways to disengage, because a lot of times what happens is couples don't disengage in a healthy manner. They just stop engaging, which is disengagement, and then they'll re-engage in a few days. And that typically leads to relational distress. And as that distress mounts, what happens is we tend to stop engaging in conflict. And somehow we think that's going to help the relationship. In reality, it typically hurts the relationship. So I want to go through some definitive benefits of conflict. Number 1, conflict tells the other person that you love them more than you love your own comfort. We know that we don't like conflict. There's very few people in this world that like conflict. I don't mind it, but I would not say I like it. So when we engage it, what we're telling our spouse, what we're telling our partner is, hey, I love you more than I love my own comfort. I love you so much, I'm willing to engage in this uncomfortable thing so that our relationship can grow. And I want us to be healthy. Number 2, conflict allows your relationship to grow by forcing both parties to move into deeper water. What happens when we have conflict is we are forced to kind of push offshore and move out into the deeper water of, let's explore some issues. Let's go beyond what's going on here on the surface. Let's talk about what's going on underneath the surface for us. Let's talk about how do we engage what's the thing behind the thing or under the thing that's going on. And you know, in the book, I share this anecdotal story. I talk about how whenever I talk to couples in premarital education, I get worried if they tell me they fight all the time. Don't get me wrong. I definitively get worried when that happens. I get way more worried when they tell me they've never fought, because that means they've never gone out into those deep waters. And conflict forces us to go out into the deeper waters of the relationship so that our relationship can be deeper, so that our intimacy can be deeper, and that our communication can be better. Number 3, conflict helps each person to become a better version of themselves. Conflict shapes us. Let's be honest about that. It changes who we are and who we're becoming. And it gives us the opportunity to choose how that shapes us. When we purposely engage it, we are giving conflict the opportunity to shape us in a way to become the person that we want to become. I often say to people that the absence of conflict is not peace. Processed conflict is peace. And part of processing is accepting what happened, the feelings that came with it, and then adding the important question: what do we do next? How do we go forward? How do we grow? Conflict helps you become a better version of yourself. Now, the opposite of this is true. Conflict can also help you become a lesser version of yourself. If you don't intentionally engage conflict, it will engage you and it will shape you in the direction that it wants you to go. And that is usually not a good thing. Number 4, conflict teaches us to differentiate our emotions. One of the best abilities that we can foster is the ability to differentiate between emotions. It's often very difficult because we're difficult dealing with any emotions, including our own. But because of this discomfort, what happens is we tend to run to this safety, which is not safety, of the emotions that we use the most. The scary part of that is the emotions we use the most are happy and sad, or, and this is an ever-growing trend, or numb, right? How are you? Fine. How's everything going? Fine. Hey, I know this really bad thing just happened. How are you? It's fine. And what happens is we don't differentiate between our emotions. We don't differentiate between I'm angry, but that's really because I'm hurt. Or I'm angry, but that's really because I'm sad. I once knew a woman who told me she realized she wasn't differentiating between her emotions. In the middle of a restaurant, she was eating by herself, some things had happened. And she said, I realized I was just looking for a reason to be angry because I was actually really sad. She was doing a good job of differentiating between her emotions. When you engage in conflict, you have to spend intentional time looking inward to ask yourself, what's the emotions that I'm feeling and what are they in relationship to how I'm expressing myself? In other words, what's going on inside of me, and am I using an emotion, am I expressing an emotion that I'm more comfortable with than the one that's actually going on inside of me? Number 5, conflict fosters teamwork. There's no better skill for a couple to develop than teamwork. Teamwork is what allows us to handle the different difficulties of marriage and parenthood and life, because let's be honest, life is hard. There's a lot of difficulties that we have to navigate, we have to figure out, we have to move through. And when we purposely engage in conflict, what we're doing is we are fostering teamwork between ourselves and the person that we're engaging in conflict with. We're forcing ourselves to become better listeners. We're forcing ourselves to become intentional speakers. We're forcing ourselves to ponder not just what we think we're hearing, but the meaning of it. It's what allows you to grow intimacy. When you want it, you have to engage in conflict because it allows you to develop it. And it's really hard. It's very difficult. It's not easy, but that's why we call it conflict. That's why we call it all those things, because conflict fosters teamwork. Conflict develops self-control, right? We all have a built-in response to self-control. Let's just be honest about that. We all have a built-in response that is negative to discipline. Let's go even more into that. Let's be realistic and admit the fact that we all typically either avoid conflict by trying to just raise the earth, right? These are the people, my friends, who get intense and yell and sarcasm, or we just run away from it. These are my friends that don't talk. They hide. Maybe they get grumpy. They get passive aggressive, but they don't engage the conflict. And if you're going to engage conflict, you are going to have to develop self-control, because it's going to take self-control just to get into the conflict. It's going to take self-control just to stay in the conflict. It's going to take self-control to get into the conflict, stay in the conflict, and then get out of the conflict. It's going to take self-control to do all of those three things and then to exit the conflict in a way that protects the relationship. It's going to take self-control to not say everything that comes to mind, to not drop that passive-aggressive statement, to not drop that aggressive statement. That is the beauty of self-control. And conflict, when you purposely engage it, forces you to develop that self-control. Number 7, when done right, conflict creates a repository. I love that word, repository. It's a great way to say a pile of memories that affirm to us that our relationship is secure. When we do conflict right, when we purposely engage conflict in a deliberate manner that seeks to answer the problem, to solve the problem and protect the relationship, that says to the other person, I disagree with this statement of yours, but I love you. I care about you. I care about our relationship. I want us to grow. The more times you do that, the more times you create muscle memory in your body for your body to say, you know what? Conflict, at least with this person, is not dangerous. It's actually safe. Conflict with this person is healthy and it is an opportunity. And I know, because I have experiences with it, I know that I can engage conflict with this person and it's totally fine. Just last night, my daughter and I were having an argument over something, over behaviors around a certain thing, comparing them to behaviors around a certain thing about 3 years ago. And my wife was like, this is what it's like arguing with the two of you because you're both so passionate that you're right. And we couldn't have both been right. And we actually said that. I'm like, I just disagree with you. Show me the research. And she was like, well, I just disagree with you. And my daughter said, and I love this, she's like, yeah, but the thing of it is we're not bothered by it. It's totally okay. There was conflict there. Now, really, there wasn't conflict. It wasn't interpersonal. It was more about things going on in our world. But those tend to run together. Those tend to bleed together. And it was fine because my daughter and I have a repository of memories that says conflict with each other is okay. When you can create this library of memories that says it is okay for me to disagree with this person. It is okay for this person to disagree with me, for us to engage in conflict together, because we will solve the problem, we will protect the relationship, and we will move ourselves forward. You're doing conflict right, and you're reaping one of the best benefits that exist in conflict. When we can engage conflict well, it actually helps us to improve the relationship because it creates memories that drive our muscle memory actions forward, right? And we know muscle memories, we've talked about them in the past. If you drive from your work to your house, you probably don't think about it much if you've been working there for a while, right? That just isn't something you think about. You do it from muscle memory. You've done it so often, it doesn't require active conscious thought. And that's fantastic. But what you want to consider is, am I doing that? What are the memories? What is the library of memories that I'm creating with the conflict that I'm creating by how I engage conflict with my spouse, with my partner, with my kids, with my neighbor, with my friends, with my coworkers, with those I disagree with? What is the library of memories that I'm creating? That's an incredibly important question. How's it going? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Because ultimately, the greatest benefit that conflict brings to a relationship, any relationship, it doesn't have to be your romantic one. Maybe you're not married. Maybe you're not dating. Maybe this is things you need to consider for you and your best friend. Maybe these benefits are things that you need to consider for you and coworkers. It doesn't matter. The best benefit that regularly engaging in conflict properly brings to any relationship is emotional security. Because if you engage in conflict appropriately, you're going to work so that that person feels heard, valued, and safe. And you might have to apologize later because you didn't do it well, but that's communication too. And what happens is once you start engaging in conflict, and your goal is to properly engage in conflict so that you can benefit the other person and the relationship, you build emotional security. And that is the greatest benefit that engaging in anything can do, because emotional security, I firmly believe, is the thing that matters most. My wife, my daughter, and I are working on a book called Raising Emotionally Secure Children. And that book is not about like, hey, do these 7 steps and these 4 dances and make sure you do diapers this way and milk that way and this that way and dinner this way. It's all about how do you build emotional security? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think those other things matter all that much. What matters the most in the relationship between parent and children is the amount of emotional security that the child feels. And a lot of that will come back to how does the parent engage the conflict between the two people, between the child and the parent. Because what happens often is we don't engage conflict well and we hurt people. So then we stop engaging it and then we're in trouble. So those 8 benefits I think are amazing for conflict. I think they're wonderful things that conflict brings to our relationship. I'm going to read them all to you one more time. Conflict tells the other person that you love them more than you love your own comfort. Engaging in conflict allows your relationship to grow by moving both parties into deeper waters and understanding. It's a beautiful thing. Conflict helps each person to become a better version of themselves. When you engage in conflict appropriately, you can literally say, I am a better person because this person engaged in conflict with me. Conflict teaches us to differentiate our own emotions. Conflict fosters teamwork, one of the most important skills that we can develop to appropriately navigate life. It develops our self-control. Self-control is so important in this world. Conflict creates a repository of memories that affirms to us that our relationship is secure and safe. It gives us the opportunity to build a library that we can go back to and say, hey, my relationship is safe. Conflict builds emotional security, which is the greatest benefit it brings us. Now, this does leave us with 4 interesting questions. How do you feel about conflict? I'd love for you to take some time with these 4 questions, especially if you and your spouse both listen to this podcast. If your spouse doesn't, maybe you can talk them into listening to just this episode. How do you feel about conflict? How does your spouse or partner feel about conflict? Where are the differences? Where are the similarities in those 2 answers? That's a really fun exercise. How do you feel about this statement? Conflict is necessary for a healthy relationship. Now, here's the thing. I want you to know that most of the time when I ask people that, they agree. They're like, oh yeah, conflict is absolutely necessary for a healthy relationship. But then their actions convey the exact opposite because they actively run away from conflict in their relationships, especially the relationships that they are most invested in. Question number 4, are there actions that you need to take in order to improve your conflict engagement skills? What are they? How will you go about that? How will you measure them? Take time, answer those 4 questions. If you don't have my book and you want to buy it, it is sold wherever fine books are sold. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at any of my offices. Those 4 questions are at the end of chapter 8. I want you to know that I appreciate you, the listener. I know that you could be spending this time listening to anybody or anything, and you chose to listen to me. I really appreciate that. I would ask a favor of you, if you haven't already, please give me a review in your podcast player store. If you've read my book, give me a review there. Even if you hate it, give me 1 star and say this guy's stupid. I don't care. But if you did hate it, why are you listening to this podcast? And share this with your friends. That helps me and hopefully it will help them. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share with a friend. And hey, give us that rating in your podcast store. Until next time, change possible.